Hi, my name is Alicia, and today I'm talking about A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. This is my first ever booktube video. I've been wanting to do this for a few years now, so this is pretty exciting for me. In case you're not familiar with Sarah J Maas, the first book in this series is A Court of Thorns and Roses. A Court of Mist and Fury is the second one, and she also writes the Throne of Glass books. She's one of my favorite authors ever, so if you have not read these, I would recommend giving it a shot. I'm not going to give much of a non-spoilery section because this is the second book and a lot of stuff happens and I don't want to give anything from the first book away. And it's all built on that. This book is amazing, like one of my favorite books I've ever read, probably the best book I've read this year, so yeah, I would give it a shot. Anyway, so for those who haven't read it, bye. At the beginning of this book, Feyre, and she's completely broken after the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses, when she's killed these fairies to get Tamlin away from Amarantha, and she's died and she's become High Fae, and she has to kind of figure out all her abilities, but Tamlin's being an asshole, and I did not know you could go from liking a character to hating them so much as I did in Tamlin in this series. Like, I absolutely hate his character now. Like how Sarah J Maas takes the time to go through the emotional impact that Feyre has due to Under the Mountain, and I like how she takes the whole book to go through her healing process. I hate books when something very emotionally traumatic happens and 2 pages later the main character is fine. I love how she actually did it realistically, where Feyre does take a while to get over it and does have to get away from Tamlin and away from her old life to be able to heal and start over new, which I really liked. It was very beautiful how it was written into this book. I'm sure a lot of you had the same reaction where like, Tamlin's being an asshole, why doesn't she see it? I like how realistic that was, where she's been in this relationship for quite a while, she loves him, and even though he's not letting her have any say in what happens to her, she still loves him, she still wants to give him a chance, and she's justifying all his actions in her head. And I really like how she kept that going throughout the whole book, and it took time. Again, this book is huge, but I love every second of it because she had time and she had the pages to go through this entire arc. But I really like how at the end she realizes, or somewhere in the middle maybe, she realizes that Tamlin isn't being fair to her and she doesn't deserve to be treated like that. And Rhys really heals her, and Rhysand is my favorite character in this entire series. Like, I absolutely adore his character. Like, he doesn't even need to be with Feyre or with anyone because his character alone is just epic. Like, I would read a whole book just on him, although I do like all the other characters too. When I really started to hate Tamlin, regardless of like the rest of the book, but the moment I really started hating him is when he destroyed the study. That line was just heartbreaking. Like, I cry in books a lot maybe, but I was crying at this one part where she's like, Tamlin, like, you're drowning me, you might as well be shoving my head under the water, and he just like destroys the study, and I was like, holy shit, did he really just do that? It was terrifying that he would do that, and that is the moment I realized, like, she has to get away from him, like, this relationship isn't gonna work at all. I could see that she was kind of like pushing them in different directions, which I really like, because I really liked Rhys's character, even in the last book, like A Court of Thorns and Roses. I did like his character, even though he was like kind of cast as a villain, but he and Feyre just have this really fun chemistry, I find. It's very fun to read. So when Rhys showed up at the wedding, and he's like, ready to go, Feyre darling, I was just, inside, I was like internally screaming because I was like, yes, like Rhys is in the book again. It's like getting more interesting. He takes her to the night court, and the night court is nothing like I expected. First off, I expected it to be like night all the time, which it isn't, but it is very beautiful at night. It has all the stars in the sky and stuff like that, so that's good. There's this hidden city, Valeris, which is so descriptive, and it just sounds, and in my mind, it's so beautiful, and the people are just so nice, and it's peaceful. Nothing like the rest of the world, which is what she was going for. It's like a hidden pocket of peace in the world at war. And it was just so sweet, and it was the perfect place for Feyre and Rhysand to go with the rest of Rhys's inner circle. And first off, when Rhys and Feyre start at the night court, their flirting is insane in this book, and it's so fun to read, and it's just, I was just laughing out loud every other page. He has Feyre start writing the line. It's like, Rhysand is handsome. Rhysand is, I don't know, like, smart, cunning. What I love most about Rhys is he doesn't take Feyre and say, I'm gonna keep you here, or you're gonna do this, I'm gonna make you do that. It's, I'd like you to do this, or you could do this if you wanted, but it's your choice. Like, I love, love, love how everything that he wants to do, or, you know, that she has to do, she always says, it's your choice, I'm not going to force you to do anything. And I love seeing the comparison between him and Tamlin like that. It was such an obvious comparison. It's kind of like seeing Rhys in a different light than we did last book, because he was a villain in the last book, and this book, he's actually seen as this very, I don't want to say sweet, because he's not sweet, but definitely considerate, generous person. In this book, we get to meet Rhys's inner circle. I absolutely adore his entire inner circle. Like Cassian, Azriel, Mor, and Amren. And they're all incredible. They all have heartbreaking stories. Azriel and Cassian came from the war camps, the Illyrian war camps, and I just think it's amazing how these characters are so genuinely nice and strong, even though they grew up in such horrible situations. And especially Azriel and Cassian from these war camps, they still think Feyre notices that they're not worth very much, and, you know, why would anyone want them around, which I thought was really heartbreaking, because they're such sweet people and I love them, and I wish they would see how much they were worth. And I think throughout this the rest of the series, the last book, we will get to see that, and we'll get to see who they're mated, or not mated off with, I guess, but like paired off with. I have some pretty hard ships going on. I'll discuss those, I'll get to those later. I just feel really bad, especially for Mor, who her family was going to sell her because she's, you know, a female born in the Court of Nightmares, and what she had to do to escape was heartbreaking, and they didn't want her anymore, and they threw her out. And his family kind of took her in, and it turned out good in the end, and then we went back and saw the Court of Nightmares later on in the book, and I was like, no wonder Mor wanted out of here. Like, it's terrifying. I'm not going to touch on everything in this book because it was huge. I'm just going to go over my favorite parts, but I just want to touch on the fact that even though there was so many different moments between the characters, so much dialogue, so much happening between them, it still takes time for really fun adventures. Like, we get to go see the bone carver, which is really creepy because he was a kid, like an 8-year-old kid, telling her like this really scary stuff about the book and the cauldron, and I just think it's funny how she put a twist on all the, you know, action scenes, I want to say. You know, the bone carver was a kid, and then they go see the weaver in the wood, and the house is made out of human remains, which is terrifying and gross, and the picture I had in my head was absolutely disgusting. But it was so cool how the weaver is blind, and she's in this house, and the house is made out of human remains, and she's singing this terrible song, and Feyre has to go up the chimney, and the weaver is at the bottom of the chimney, and the whole thing was exciting, and so descriptive, and I loved that part. I didn't want to stop reading, and I feel like it's very Hansel and Gretel-like, you know, like, but instead of candy, it's made out of people. I have to say, I was getting a little, when they first went to the summer court, I was like, okay, like, not really liking the summer court, let's go back to the night court where there's hot dudes and adventure. But Feyre and Amren are going to get the book in the summer court, and now Tarquin is mad at them and has sent them all these blood rubies, whatever, marked them as a target, and I don't know how that's going to play out in the third book. Maybe Tarquin will side with the King of Hybern, like the summer court, or not the summer court, the spring court did. I hope not, because Tarquin actually did seem like a genuinely nice character, and he's trying to do his best for his people. I get that, but I don't like that he's going against Rhys and Feyre, because they're the good guys. What we have next in the book, there's so much in this book, is we have Feyre's sisters, Nesta and Elaine, come back in this book. We get to see them again, and they're kind of the, what do you call it, the people going between the mortal queens and the fae, and these queens are absolute bitches. Like, I hated every single last one of them, even like the nice ones. I was like, no. You're all awful people. I hate you. Even the golden one, I think it was the golden one. Or was the golden one the mean one? I'm pretty sure the golden one is the one that gave them the book, which is okay, but then the queen sold them out to the king, and it was horrible. After they showed them Belair's, and I wanted to kill every single last one of them. I hope they all die when they go in that cauldron. I'm sure we'll get to see it next book. I hope they all die because they deserve it. We have the really crazy chemistry between Cassian and I find both sisters, like, he's just a funny guy in general, but I thought he had genuine moments with both of them. I personally ship Cassian with Nesta just because they're so, they butt heads a lot, and both so stubborn and strong-willed and at each other's throats, and I feel like that relationship would be really, really fun if we get to delve into that. And Elaine at the end, I'm gonna save that for the end, but my favorite, absolute favorite scene in this book was when they all went to the Court of Nightmares. This whole scene, man, like, I don't know how she did it, but she managed to put like steamy time and humor and actual real serious stuff all into like one scene, which is absolutely crazy. So Feyre is playing the part of Rhysand's whore, which I thought was, again, really sad and very symbolic because Rhysand was Amarantha's whore, which is, again, heartbreaking. Everything in this book is just ripped out my heart. Like, I was crying so much. Anyway, this scene was so much fun because we have this, you know, kind of romantic vibe between Rhys and Feyre. She added humor into it because while they're doing this, they're mind talking, and I love their mind talking so much because the flirting is just hilarious. They grow really close and it's really cute. I love them together. And where they're in the middle of doing this, Rhys says, you know, I think he's so disgusted that he does the orb just to get out of here. And again, she managed to put humor into a steamy and a serious situation. Because one of my absolute favorite lines in this book is actually during that scene where Feyre is like, I wondered as he was doing this, as he was putting on this mask, if there was a man underneath that didn't think he was worth very much at all. And it is one of my absolute favorite lines because Rhys is my favorite character, and it just shows that even though he's so powerful and strong and nice and he's good, he's done so much good in his life, he still thinks he's worth nothing, even though he does so much for everyone else and he just doesn't see it. And it's exactly like Feyre, they're in the same boat, and exactly like the rest of his crew who don't think they're worth very much either, and they are. And Feyre gets him to see that. And at the end where she's like, I don't care if I'm gonna have a target on my back for marrying you, like, I love you and I want to be with you and you're worth it. And just that line, you're worth it, just had me bawling again. The next scene that I really liked between them, again, is when Starfall night, and they go up on the balcony and they start dancing and they're laughing and smiling with each other, and they're covered in like the star stuff, like I don't want to call it like goo because that sounds really bad, but they're all sparkly and shiny, and it was just such a sweet scene where they're both laughing and smiling for like the first time ever, because they don't ever laugh and smile in this series because it's so damn dark. It was such a sweet moment and I really loved it, and I read it a couple times over because I couldn't get enough of it. I think their relationship really starts to shift in the hotel scene. They do like each other in a romantic way, and after that Rhys is shot out of the sky with these like poison arrow things. And I was freaking out because I was like, Rhysand cannot die, Rhysand can't do anything, he's staying right here, he's my favorite character, don't let my baby die. He goes and traps the Suriel, which I was expecting again, because where else are you gonna get all your information from? Okay, one, her blood heals people, which doesn't make sense to me, I don't know where that came from, but it's cool. Let's keep it, I like it. And second, Feyre is Rhys's mate. I was like freaking out, I was like, oh my god, like how long has this been going on, like I need answers. And when she goes back to Rhys though, she literally heals him and leaves. Like, she's mad at him, and I get that because he didn't tell her, but I kind of agree with his choice of not telling her because he was getting married to Tamlin, his enemy. He had a debt to him, like, he thought she hated him, and so I totally get why he didn't tell her. He wanted her to make the choice by herself of who she wanted to be with, and I thought that was very kind of him, and eventually she came around and saw that, which I thought was really nice. Rhys comes back, make food, apparently that's like, I'll let you be my mate kind of thing for the woman if she gives him food, which is, I thought was really funny. She's like, do you love me? He nods, and then she's like, then eat. It's like, that's a really awkward line, but okay. For this scene, okay, there was a lot of steamy times in this book, I have to say. It's not like a young adult book, I wouldn't say. It's like more geared toward older readers, I'd say. Because there was a lot of sex scenes in it, steamy times. Which I thought I mean, they weren't just randomly thrown in there. They fit with the story, they went well with the story, so I actually liked them. I think each steamy time, although they were really fun to read and I'm sure to write, they did have an impact on the story, and they were there for a reason. I liked that. After their mates, Feyre goes back to Valeris, and Azriel and Cassian are there, and she's like mind texting Rhys, and she's like, I feel bad for like kicking them out, but I don't want warriors, I just want company. And he's like, they cross a line, you can stop them, but I'm gonna protect you no matter what. You can kick their asses out if you want, but they'll just sit on the roof. And she goes, you Illyrians are so insufferable. And he's like, good thing we make up for it with our impressive wingspans. And she's like, you're such a prick. Like, the flirting between them was just hilarious. Like, I loved it. The end of this book. Holy shit, so much happened just in the end of this book, regardless of like all the other epic action that happened in the rest of the book. So first, the beginning of the end, as I want to call it in this book, is when Velaris is attacked because the queens have given it up to the King of Hybern. The queens are absolute bitches, as I have already said. I hate them. Sarah with her water wolves was epic. The way she killed the adder, where she's like winnowing in and off his back and like stabbing him for everyone, and that was a pretty good scene. I loved like Feyre finally standing up for herself and being a badass. I just love all the badass female characters in this book. Like, I love seeing strong female characters. And there's also a lot of strong male characters too, so I like how she made that kind of equal. And it made me hate Tamlin and Lucien even more than I already did. Lucien, because he's in the woods and he tries to grab her, even though he tells him that she doesn't want to go with him, and he tries anyway. And I get that he's being loyal to Tamlin, but there's a line like that he should have been aware not to cross. Like, apparently he's Elaine's mate, which I am pissed about. Like, just pissed. Like, I didn't expect it, I didn't like it. Nesta and Elaine are now Fae because Tamlin gave up her human family, and he literally, to get Feyre back, he promises the King of Hybern that his army can go through his land. At first I was like, okay, even if he brings Feyre back, she's strong enough now to get out on her own. I was like trying to come up with all these scenarios in my head of how she would go with Tamlin and like escape back to the Night Court, but it didn't happen. Anyway, so this cauldron thing is like a bathtub. Apparently. I was picturing like a little dinky pot that's like golden water. And when her sisters first went under, I thought Elaine for sure would die because she's so sweet and good. And then Nesta would come out still being badass because she's Nesta. And they both survive, which is good. But as soon as Lucien gave her his jacket, I was like, no. Like, no. I wonder how it'll play out because Lucien is with Tamlin now. And Elaine went back with the Night Court gang, so I'm really interested to see in the next book how that all plays out. I'm sure Lucien will get some redemption, because in the first book he did kind of become Feyre's friend, and he's still, you can see that he's debating in this book of whether or not to do what Tamlin wants. He's trying to fight it, but he doesn't. I think it's okay for characters to be flawed, so you know what, if Lucien kind of takes a turn for the better in the next book, I'm okay with that. I don't hate him quite as much as I hate Tamlin. Tamlin, there's no coming back from. Even if he was like the nicest character ever in the third book, I would still hate him. When the King of Hybern finally made the deal to break the bond between Feyre and Rhysand, I was terrified when the bond was actually broken. That her and Rhys were completely cut off. She would go back with Tamlin and go back to being not depressed, but like she would be stuck again, and I didn't like that. But it turns out he didn't break the mating bond, which Sarah doesn't let us know until like the last freaking pages. I'm so happy that Feyre is not actually disconnected from Rhys in a way. They can still talk, they can still mind text, and they're still mates, which is adorable. But she goes back with Tamlin to be a spy. I hate that they're separated because the favorite interaction in the whole book is between Rhys and Feyre, but I'm interested to see what Feyre comes up with or sees when she's in Tamlin's spring court again. How does she avoid sleeping with Tamlin in the spring court again? Because they are supposed to be like technically together, you know. She pretended that she was under Rhys's spell kind of thing, and I'm just super curious to see how she's going to act with Tamlin now, because she can't just go back to normal. She hates the guy. Things I'm really looking forward to in the next book are to see how Elaine and Lucien are going to kind of turn out, because they're separated right now, but apparently they're mates. How the sisters Nesta and Elaine will deal with being Fae, because they grew up hating it. I want to know what Amren is. Amren is this badass, small character who is apparently super strong, trapped in this mortal body, and she's super smart. She's thousands of years old, and I'm just so curious to see. I'm picturing like her turning into a dragon. Like, I don't know why, I think she's a dragon, but I'm picturing like this huge blackish gray dragon. Those were my thoughts. I'm sorry if this book review was a bit longer than, I guess I haven't done any before, but a bit longer than I would usually make them, because this book was just so jam-packed and I loved it so much. As I said before, Sarah J Maas is one of my favorite authors. Actually probably tied for first with Cassandra Clare. So yeah, let me know below if you liked this video, what you disliked about it, your favorite parts. I'm really interested to see what you guys liked about it. I'm just super excited for the next one. Thanks. Bye. Oops.